From plants to power, the biofuel called ethanol. Intro and background. Ethanol is a renewable biofuel made mostly from plant materials like corn in the United States and sugarcane in Brazil. It is an alcohol-based fuel that can be mixed with gasoline to power vehicles. Ethanol has become a large player in the alternative energy field, aiming to reduce dependence on fossil fuels and lower greenhouse gas emissions. How it is grown. The main sources for ethanol are high sugar or high starch crops like corn, sugarcane, sorghum, and in some cases plant fibers. These crops are grown using traditional growing practices through photosynthesis. These plants can absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and convert it into glucose and other carbohydrates. These stored sugars are the main foundation for ethanol production. How it is produced. Ethanol is produced through three processes: fermentation, distillation, and dehydration. An example of fermentation is sugars taken from the plants are converted into ethanol and CO2 by microorganisms like yeast. This process is anaerobic, so it does not require oxygen. Distillation takes the ethanol from fermentation and separates it by heating it, since ethanol has a lower boiling point than water. Dehydration includes removing the water to purify the ethanol, which is often mixed with gasoline. Development status. Ethanol is used globally and mostly used for fuel. The United States and Brazil are the global leaders in ethanol production. It is commonly used in alcohol and food as well. Carbon footprint. Ethanol is considered carbon neutral in theory because the CO2 emitted uh, when it burns is almost equal to the amount absorbed by the plants during their growth, but technically it is not carbon neutral because we must consider the carbon emissions burned during farming practices and the refining processes. According to the RFA, the life cycle of carbon emission is 46% lower than the carbon emissions of gasoline, making it much better, cleaner alternative. Economic impact. Ethanol production has created thousands of jobs, especially in rural areas. It supports farmers in their practices as well as helps reduce oil importation from other countries. According to the Renewable Fuels Association, ethanol production in 2022 accounted for nearly 79,000 direct jobs across the country, 57 billion of the gross domestic product, and 34.8 billion in household income. Communication to the public. One example of communication to the public involving ethanol is the E85 campaign. In 2003, the campaign was launched to promote corn-based ethanol fuel. This campaign was made to reduce dependence on gasoline. E85 means 85% ethanol and 15% gasoline, which performs the same as gasoline but is more renewable and reduces the demand for imported oil. The campaign is still ongoing, but there is still some misconceptions about how efficient and reliable it is compared to gasoline. The next steps. Currently, ethanol is seen to be as a possible alternative to reduce the dependency on gasoline since it has reduced emissions and it is renewable. There are some concerns on the amount of land, resources, and water consumption it takes. Corn requires a lot of land to grow and a large amount of water. There are also some concerns about the energy consumption it takes to purify the ethanol and air pollution it would release. While it is renewable, it may not be sustainable to produce enough to completely get rid of gasoline. I do think that it can help reduce the emissions that gasoline creates and can help keep the planet cleaner. Plan of action. With the limited resources, I would recommend implementing more gas stations that provide E85 as well as making it cheaper than normal gas to promote usage from the public. I would also launch an education program that informs people of what E85 is and its benefits to reduce the stigma surrounding ethanol versus gas. I would also like to get land for producing corn and researching different plants that can produce ethanol efficiently. Personally, the biggest problem is the lack of promotion and education surrounding ethanol as an alternative, so that would be my main focus point. These are my references.